And do not forget to do good and to share with others, for with such sacrifices, God is pleased. And now, here's Reverend Sue.
Joy in my soul, God is in control. I got Satan on my trail, but I'm singing all is well. He's attacking every day, but I'm watching while I pray. No matter the attack, I won't turn back, 'cause this means war.
Good evening, and how are you this evening? We are excited to have one of our best friends who has been with us from the beginning until now, and we respect him highly for his just his gift as a historian and his gift as a child of God. He is a historian. I call him historian Charles Davis. He was born in Florida, but he tell us that he was also born in Georgia. Now, I don't know how his birth certificate is because I have not seen it, but he claims Georgia as well because he lived a few feet away from the Georgia state line. So we have to check his birth certificate and see what they have, whether they have Georgia or Florida on there, right? He's an active deacon at New Bethel Baptist Church, and our pastor is Pastor Dexter Unutall. I always said it's the fastest growing church in the world. I start out with the United States. Now I'm giving it the whole world. A fantastic church located at 1739 9th Street, Northwest Washington, D.C. And so we thank historian Charles for taking the time to be with us today. He is a graduate of Florida A&M University, and it's an 1890 institute. That's also an HBCU. Mm-hmm. So today, thank you so much for the historian Charles for taking the time to be with us today. Mm-hmm. Now, we talked about the Black farmers for the last few Sundays. We're still talking about the Black farmers. And as I was reading and meeting with one of our guests, Dr. John
Boyd Jr.
Yeah, John Boyd Jr. And I was thinking about the 1890 schools institution, because there was a reason why the Morrill Act came about. Mm-hmm. And I know about the 1862s and 1890s, but I want you to talk a little bit about that, because my understanding, and I've experienced this, I'm a farm girl also, is that we are losing our Black farmers, we are losing our land, but yet we still have the 1890s universities here. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So now I'm thinking of what are we doing when it comes to agricultural business? So yes, tell us a little bit about, number one, is when we talk about the Morrill Act, and also talk about the 1890 schools.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Number one, thank you for bringing Mr. John Boyd on to your program to give us illumination, because when we start thinking of Black agribusiness or agriculture, if you will, right now, you have to give credit with him standing on his shoulders for who he is and what he has been doing for the last, decade, if you will, to get things into the forefront. And but back and moving over to the institutions that you talk about, number one, let's look at ourselves first. What does it take, when and I'm sure you can recognize the image we have of farmers way back when, the idea, we did not see them as, a Wall Street executive as such. We saw them as a backward person out on the farm, the expression out on the farm. And when the turn of the century, a little bit after the Depression somewhat, people were evacuating the land in droves, going to city living, industrial city living. And so we ourselves, not being able to see the intrinsic value of land and a farm, we just turned it loose and let went. And even down when it came to getting scholarships to go to school, so many of our land grant schools, as we talked about for a while, were able to give scholarships. But when we just so averse to the farm, we did not want to even deal with the idea of anything in agriculture. We wanted to be away from the farm. we individually, and maybe our background, slavery, segregation, all of those things probably blended in to want us to, to evacuate it. But that's what it is. And even at a land grant school, we don't have an abundance of people at our land grant 19 you spoke about, looking at majors in agriculture. We want away from it. Well, we did now, but I do hope and pray to some degree, with what you're doing, bringing to the forefront and emphasizing, showing people who are involved with it. And now we can look that way. Do we see, we need to have entrepreneurs in agriculture, people who want to, look at that, be something in chemicals that would help agriculture, something in farm machinery that would help agriculture. We can be entrepreneurs in that. But again, you brought up the term agribusiness. We have to learn agriculture. It is a business, and we have to see it. It is a business, and it is also quite unique. The Tandy, what we call PC, its first purpose was for farm purposes. We actually see where these things are, what a PC is now. But if we can go back to the original old Radio Shack, its first purpose was to help farmers, to collect data and keep records of crops and the like. And we see where it is now. But again, there are so many aspects of using life in agriculture, and those have to be exposed to us for us to then get a desire to work in that and move forward and help hold a stay on the losing of the lands that we are losing as Black farmers.
So when going back to the Morrill Act, is that started at 1862, right?
Yes, ma'am. Exactly.
And then there was land grant universities, but because of maybe the Jim Crow during that time,
yes,
students were not allowed to go to those universities.
Exactly.
Okay, so from there, we had the 1890 schools, which was the 1890s was 17 universities.
Yes.
Right, but still HBCU, but 17 universities.
Yes, ma'am.
And those universities like Florida A&M University, Florida A&M, Agricultural Mechanical Universities, or
exactly.
North Carolina A&T, Agricultural Technical, right? Or South Carolina. Yes. Mm-hmm. And the first one was Lincoln University, Lincoln University, and Shana University, or there was one there in Georgia. I can't remember. I always forget that name. Fort Valley. So I would definitely encourage people to go back and take a look at the 1890 universities. And now we know the reason why we called them 1890 schools. Versus HBCUs, yes, but they're 1890 school mainly because they focus on agricultural.
Exactly.
And that's where we are today. If those schools focus on agricultural, and then now we migrated to cities, we migrated to, like my family migrated to Florida, they left the farmland. So now our children and grandchildren not really into agriculture because they think, when they talk about agriculture, they think about farming.
That's it.
And that's why you're the expert to tell them that is more than farming. There's more than that tractor behind, there's more than soil. It's so much dealing with agriculture.
Yes. It is so much. It is so broad. Any of the sciences, from the sciences of biology, the sciences of chemistry, all of those have direct links into that. And I'm thinking I would be somewhat amiss to think of the number of scholarships that young people probably are missing that are there. I can very well remember I was a friend of mine who was offered a chance to go to Florida A&M, in the field. And the ag teacher was trying to get him to understand, you can go and you will be in science. He said he wanted, but that is a science major. Go and just be a soil scientist. He was trying to expose the idea that, okay, this is a money that's available, but it was hard for him to grasp the idea to go in under the auspices of agriculture. And I dare say we must really be careful. There's something called Future Farmers of America now. It was in a while, there was something called the FFA, and then there was something called NFA, which was for African Americans, and it goes way back. And this was in a community and in high schools, these programs. But you will find that the land grant schools, not counting our 19, the other was, there are huge chapters of this FFA in these land grant schools. And there, this is a means, along with the 4-H and what have you, of extending itself back down through the roots of high schools and grade schools, if you will, elementary, where there are 4-H programs, and into the high schools where there are the FFA programs. So this program has been a chain, a link that has been established to keep knowledge, scholarships, I dare say, and everything down, and then highlighting agribusiness through the ranks, agribusiness. And then I emphasize these entrepreneurial things. There's something that, exciting and dynamically to be learned in agribusiness, all the way up through the satellite industries. They're using satellites to look at cropland for moisture, insects, and many, many things. But think all of this is coming forward. But when we talk about computer sciences, we need people within computer science who have knowledge of the agriculture. Then how are they going to write the software that's going to enhance and do the things that they do? Something I'm very interested in now is drone technology. And they are just taking off as far as agriculture is concerned, helping in irrigation, helping in pest control. And it goes on and on. So, but it needs to be that at our 19, that we can come forth and really show and expose this thing. There was something called Homemakers of America, Future Homemakers of America, if anybody can remember that. And those things that was linked right into the extension program. You had a note about the extension program, and where these people would go out and then take this knowledge from the unit. They were called, there was an act of a law passed, basically, that what was given in the land grant schools had to be taken out and given to the community. Well, definitely, segregation would come in there. But there were people in our land grant schools that went forth, and where we called the agricultural extension services, extension agents, or some of the people would be called, and theirs was. And we have a very crucial and critical one we can always go back to, George Washington Carver. Carver had the mobile extension service. He had a mule and wagon that he probed around the South, taking and sharing. And we know of his knowledge in botany, taking that knowledge to help the farmers all throughout and helping them change their crop processes there. So we need George Washington Carvers now, I think, to go forth, and for the few the Black farmers that are left, to go and help them to enhance, grow quicker and grow better in what they're doing, crop-wise and animal-wise, and that, there to help us to move forth. And again, get a steadfastness that it can be exciting and strong, in that there's still something in farming.
I know one thing I would like for our brothers and sisters to take away this evening is to really, truly understand that what is agriculture. And I think you're doing a fantastic, outstanding job bringing that to our attention. But agriculture, to me, is wherever you are sitting right now, I would challenge you to look around your room, wherever you're in the car, wherever you're in a park this evening, where you are, there is agriculture, and most of it is agriculture. And that's the point that we want to bring out, is that most things that we see every single day has everything to do with agricultural industry. So Amen. We should keep that in mind as a scientist, economist, a mathematician, a communicator. We name it. It's agriculture or soil conservation, like you said. You have to look at soil before you build anything. So, even looking at architectural design, everything is agriculture, our furniture, our clothing, so much medicine. I mean, everything is agriculture industry. And not to think for the millennials as well, enter into college, not to think that it's a farm job. I don't want that. That's hard work. I don't want to be out in the field. No, that is one part of agriculture industry. Agriculture industry cover so foreign agriculture, so many things, so many opportunities. And going back to the 1890 schools, I don't want to speak. I have to look this up to see if it's still ongoing. Department of Agriculture had a program called the 1890 universities, whereas if you receive a scholarship, that would be a 4-year scholarship, and you were also obligated to work for the Department of Agriculture for 3 years. That is a great program, and I would put it out there, and the next time I'm online, I would just clarify that if it's still going on. That's a fantastic, many students have been educated within that program, and so I would challenge our students, our young people, to look into that agriculture industry, because it's not just farming. There's so many things that you see. Another thing is that, can you tell us a little bit about the 1994? We talk about the 1862s, the 1890 universities, and the 1994. Because when you look at Morrell, you see all the three different times.
Yes, the last phase of it was one to actually that actually brought together, where it merged a lot and brought together a lot. But I know you're asking that. I want to come to that. But before I really go to that, I want to emphasize one thing, please, forgive me. But one thing we talk about the aspect of this agribusiness, and it is business. Do you understand? So a business that we are going to have to learn. So even though we look at the first phase of the Morrell Act, the second phase, and then you talk about the 94, the third phase of it there, where it came together and recognized what this thing, was doing, this act, I'm sorry. But in so doing, 94, we then, when we look at ourselves, we have lost so much land when we, down to that, whereby, and even if we look at the current bills that are before Congress and everything that have been passed, what Biden's massive stimulus relief package, we look at that. And so he passed the package, but there's a component in that package that would bring funds to farmers of color, Mr. Boyd's thing. But to get the thing passed, and then it's not funded. Business, you understand? Business. And that's what it boils back down to. But we ourselves, we've got to do better really in business and helping to hold on to the Black farms. In that, how many, we have people now on farms now that can't really do a genealogy of their land.
Yes.
A history of their land, the deed that you hold. And when you can't do that, you cut yourself off from much that the Department of Agriculture has to offer. So all of these acts we're talking about, the 1994 Act and the aid and everything that even in the stimulus bill can give, we can call it racist or whatever, and probably some of it is, but when the Department of Agriculture will not come forward and do it, because they have the rulings that if you cannot show, the history of how you came up with this land, where is the deed that says this is yours? Where can you track this where we can say this was sold to you via? And so much of us, we now have trouble with that. And that too is something that's holding us away from loans and financing that the Department of Agriculture gives. So I'm going to jump way over to your church part.
Wait. So you're telling me that for the land that you have now in your name, they want to go all the way back to history of how that land came about? Basically
know how you got it. They need to know, I would say, I won't say 3 generations, but there has to be 3 iterations of this has to be sown. How did you get this? How did you come into ownership of this? You need to be able to definitively show that. And then when they, quote unquote, go to the courthouse and look, it is recorded that it is yours. Mm-hmm. Now, listen, it can be, but it can't be now where it comes up where it's 5 family members. Mm-hmm. That doesn't get it. They can't pinpoint and say, well, then if we want to say then who is the person in charge, or who then is consigned for loans against this. We don't want 5 people, we want 1. We want 1. And I think many of us know in some land situations where they're brothers and sisters and such, but that doesn't work here. I'm sorry, it has to come down to 1. And that's a side of business that we've got to work on if we are going to hold what's left. And then I said the church part, is help us in our disputes, because in some of our disputes, we've had people that held out. They, one can take and maybe go forth with the farm, but know what? We hold out. And so when we talk about the acts, and there's a Summers Act and all of these acts, and even like the last stimulus bill to give money from the Department of Agriculture, we are not going to be able to have access to it because of business with land. And that's something we've got to work on hard. And so there are many families now, farm people, where farmland is held at bay because families are at dispute. They won't come to the agree to say, all right, well, let this person do it. You had a person like 3 weeks ago on your program, the farm outside of Savannah. Yes. Did you hear what he said he had to go through? All of the lost money legally he had to pay within his family. Yes. To get to the point to where now he could just move forward and farm. He, as I say, is like the tip of the iceberg in that. So there are many of us, unfortunately, of the good brothers of Ebony Hugh as such, that we have these situations before us, that are somewhat holding us captive to funding that should be coming our way.
So our question again is basically, what can churches do? What can churches do?
Amen. What they can do now is get families to come together and do away with some of this hostilities that exist in so many that are holding us away from the land. I mean, too many times within my own family, I've seen and heard situations whereby people would say, well, I'd rather see whatever before he get it. And we've got to somehow or another, much too much land is being lost through these antagonists, and upsetness within. I'm telling you, and something I never told you, but I wanted to be a farmer. I really wanted to farm. I did. That was my joy. And then I found out there was no land.
That's that's important. That's very important. You want to farm? Yeah, you don't have land. That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay.
But when I now can travel an area and see the land that has left my family, farmland, it's a pain to the heart. But again, it was because of disputes. I would say just disputes within that we never settle ourselves. And as a result, now, so I do pray and hope that other families can get things like this worked out, that they won't experience this. But I'm definitely telling you, so a lot of what we are talking about, the discriminations and the situations that the systemic that the Department of Agriculture itself had, and the way it so configured loans and subsidies as such that really blocked us out. But true, segregation is all that's true. But we are going to have to work in on the internals of ourselves and where we are with our families and getting at and settlements so that then we can come together and still, hopefully, I pray, and hold this land and then go forward. But those are some of the things there. But the agriculture is greatly, it's so much to be done and given to us, and I think given to our quote unquote millennials, move from the view that you have to be in the field. We've got to get beyond that because, look, work with the satellites, take it to that level. Take it to that level. And then again, and like you just said, it's in everything. I see the plant there behind your left corner. Look at that. Go over to the Arboretum there, in Northeast Washington there. That's a Department of Agriculture. That is agriculture. Growing beautiful flowers for the home and all, if you don't want to grow food. But that's the Department of Agriculture. The forestry, the great, beautiful trees and everything. And look at the work's going to be needed for the fires that are going on in the West right now. That's agriculture.
That's
That is agriculture. Mhm.
What are the social financial advantage of African American involvement in ag business?
Well, it's more than tremendous. You spoke then in ag business. You spoke of the veterinarian side, there, and animal husbandry, and that, because there is tremendously so much. It's overwhelming. It's so vast there. Which would it be then at social events if we can stand up and get a person to stand up, be with any, wherever, from Wall Street or wherever, and still talk and be respectful and excited within themselves that I am in agriculture, I'm in agribusiness. That's where it is now. We have to get to a point where we see that, and that it's socially acceptable to be there. It's socially acceptable to be able to talk about that.
Yes.
Yes, it is. And then, for even young lawyers, we would say young African-American lawyers, we need them now when we talk about this, because this stimulus bill now for Black farmers, this thing is more monumental than the 64 Civil Rights Bill from what it did. This thing
we
is
almost out of
monumental.
time.
Yes, ma'am.
My clock said we got to close.
Okay, all right.
But I appreciate you so much. I get excited about farmland. I get excited about agriculture because I know the value of agriculture. And we thank you for being our historian. We thank you for being our deacon. And we just thank you so much for everything. And thank you for taking the time to be with us today. For our friends and our friends and families listening, please, whatever you do, take another look at agriculture. And if you're in college or you have any authority to look at the curriculum on the college level, take a look at agriculture and see how you can attract more students in going into agricultural business. So may God bless you and continue to be watchful. Be watchful.
Amen.
And pray. And when you
always
pray, get up and do something. May God bless you. You've been listening to Sunday Evening with Reverend Sue.
We thank you for listening to Sunday Evenings with Reverend Sue. We'd also like to invite you to join us on social media at Sunday Evenings with Reverend Sue on Facebook as well as YouTube for our live events and all of our information. Once again, thank you.